right, so here are the finished prototypes, I guess. My finished wet bags I made. These are all holding a changing pad inside of them, and that is also waterproof, and it's all washable. You could also throw diapers and wipes in here, so there's plenty of room. It's not very thick at the moment. And I'm going to show you guys how you can make these and sell them. And you can be as creative as you want. You can be as plain as you want. You can do it however you wish. If you have a what's it called? A farmer's market with a booth, I think that would be a great place to sell these. All right, this is the wet bag with a changing pad tutorial that I'm going to show you guys how to make today. If you're looking to make some fun, easy, simple, sellable, marketable projects, I have one right here for you. And if you're interested in this type of a topic, please make sure to follow along, subscribe, and then hit the notification bell. If you're interested in knowing more projects to sell, I'm going to do tutorials starting next week. This is my first one. This is a changing pad inside of the wet bag. So I'm going to pull it out and show you. This is oversized as well. It is approximately 17 by 27. So one side is a cotton, quilter's cotton. The other side is PUL, which is a washable, waterproof fabric. It's used a lot of times in fabric diapers to make the covers for a fabric diaper. So that fits nicely right inside this bag. You do sew a zipper, we make a little ruffle, and that's about it. So this is a tutorial we're going to go through today. I sewed a couple different options together just to kind of give you some ideas. You can be as creative and colorful as you want, or you can just do it all gray or black and kind of make it, you know, more masculine if you want. You can make these as gifts, or you can make them to sell, or you can make it for yourself. So let's get started. Okay, so now I have all my pieces cut to make the wet bag, except the PUL, the polyurethane laminate. I use, for this bag, I'm using 931 TD, which is a midweight interfacing. You can use this, or you can use SF101. Just something you don't want it too stiff. So just, I guess, a medium weight interfacing, fusible interfacing is good. So since I'm using zipper tape, I cut my zipper tape 1 inch narrower than my bag, and my bag is 10 inches. So I cut my tape at 9, and then I cut a little square, 1.5 by 2 inches. I ironed it into the center and then the sides in, and I will make tabs for my zipper tape. If you need more information on zipper tape, let me know. Otherwise, you can use a store-bought zipper. You can use a 9-inch zipper, which will be, the tape will be longer, so the tape will go into your sides. This is the fabric, or the zipper tape. That will be just fine. Use whatever zipper you're comfortable with. I like zipper tape. It's, once you get used to it, it's really nice because you can, it comes in a piece like this, and then you just cut off how long you want, and then you get the little pulls, and you just put a pull on it. It's a little tricky. Once you know how to do it, it's not a big deal at all. So this is my pieces. I am going to start with pressing on my interfacing. So let's go get that started. When I cut my interfacing, I usually cut it just a tad bit smaller than my fabric piece. 1, it helps with not accidentally touching your iron to it, and 2, it makes a little less bulk in the seams when you sew it. So just add that. And it's the glue side goes towards the wrong side of your fabric. You always want to iron it with that interfacing upside down. You don't want to iron directly to the back of that interfacing unless you put an ironing cloth over top. Sometimes your iron can stick to it and it's not fun. I have done it plenty of times the wrong way. So, all right, here's our last piece. You do not need interface on the ruffle. Interfacing just gives it some structure, so you do not need to add structure to the ruffle. All right, our 3 pieces have been interfaced. Okay, so we're going to start with attaching the ruffle to the bottom front fabric piece. I like to find center of the ruffle and find center of the top piece. And I just lay that on center and I start with that. Remember, this is however you want to do it. You don't, nothing is set in stone here. You don't have to do it exactly my way. Then I take the sides and I match up the side with the side and the top. And then I come over here to the other side and do the same thing. And that's why it also doesn't matter, if you're ruffle fabric, if you're short an inch or something, it's gonna be okay. So you're just gonna make it up as you go. And I just like to tuck pleat it. Like so. Or you could gather this pleat, whatever you want. It's really up to you. Whatever you do on the one side though, I would definitely do on the other side. So I'll show you what I mean by that here in a minute. Oops, I lost it. So on this side I have 4 pleats. So I want to do the same on this side. Here's my center. And I'm just going to start by matching that one up approximately about the same. So it's about the same over, it's about the same fold and pin. So I have 4 pins or 4 folds on this side as well. Okay, so that's the top of our bottom piece. This is the top of the front. So this is the bottom, top, and the top. So you can see this side should attach to there. So I will just go ahead and drop it down like this. Just take a second to really make sure you're lined up. Make sure your sides, everything like down here, make sure everything looks good before you start honing in on pinning it. And then for this, I like to come through and pin again or clip it just so it holds it in place for me. Okay, and then one more here just to keep it in the general area. I'm going to stitch this on with 1/4 inch to I usually use I use a 1/4 inch seam allowance on this part. Okay, and make sure you back stitch for your own happiness later. And go slow. over all those folds. There you go. And so remove your pins. I actually meant to leave this one. I like to leave my side pin here till I get my sides stitched on, just to make sure the ruffle edge gets caught in the seam when you sew it together. So there's your front. That was pretty simple, right? Okay, then this is our back. Before we can attach our back, there are a few things we need to do. If you're sewing on a label, I would recommend attaching it, pinning it something now so that you don't forget. Labels are fun. You can easily have something made on Etsy, or you can make your own. There are a lot of tutorials out there on how to make those. I have my zipper foot on. Now I'm going to attach the zipper to the front. Take time. I don't pin because I like to move it as I go, as I sew. Okay, so I do not sew beyond the zipper tape. I start right on that little tab I just included, as close to the edge as I can with the edge of my zipper foot, and then lock it on. And this is not a rush, so take your time. It'll look nicer if you just take your time. So that is on. I gotta cut the PUL. So I'm gonna go cut that and then I'll come back. Okay, so let's sew on. So this is the front. We've sewn the zipper. Now we're gonna take the PUL, the waterproof layer, and the slippery side face down onto here. So that slippery side is the right side. So right sides together, same, the zipper is in the same place. I'm just gonna slide it over. And you're gonna attach this piece of waterproofing, and then I like to, so it doesn't walk on me, I like to pin it down here just to make sure, and I'm actually making sure it's lined up here first, and then I'm pinning it down here as well. Hope that makes sense. I don't like it to move, so I'm just gonna stick one there for a second, stick one here for a second, and stick one right down here. Okay, so we still have our zipper foot on. We're gonna start at the same spot. We're not gonna start at the far edge. We're gonna start where our zipper end is that we made. We're gonna lock this on. And then just sew this on just like you sewed the zipper onto the other fabric. And then we are going to go in here and open the zipper, or close it. Just move the zipper out of my way. There we go. Okay, so that is attached. Open it up. Press it out with your hands, because we are going to do a top stitch on here just to keep it from getting, if you don't top stitch, your PUL can get stuck in your zipper down the way. So it's really good just to top stitch, but I like to make sure you pull it and you're pulling the PUL down so it's tight. You don't want to have any bulk. You know what I'm saying? You want to have it all nice and tight in there. And then same starting spot, but now you're going to top stitch. So you're going to start on the fabric itself. So that part is on. Just clean up some stitches. Okay, so now we are going to sew the back on, and to sew the back on, we still are looking at the top right, and we have the right sides together. I start like that, and then I flip it over. And then again, you're gonna want to make sure everything is lined up down below. And then you can go ahead and put your piece of PUL right side to right side. Let's go ahead and give it a pin or a clip, something to keep it a little bit together. I will have to move it anyway because of the zipper pull. I want to move that, but just to kind of keep all my layers together, I'll do this. And then starting again on the zipper tape knot at the end. Okay, then we gotta reach in, move the pull over, make sure everything's lined up again. So you get all your layers, and then stitch it all the way to the end of the tape, of the zipper tape. All right, so let's see what we got. Now we have almost a zipper pouch, right? We're just gonna do a top stitch on this side of the zipper next. Again, you're gonna start at the zipper tape. I know I keep repeating myself, but it's just better that way. You don't want to forget. All right, that's it. Let's clean up our ends. Okay, so to do this, to make this into a zipper pouch, we have one more step to do, and that is to sew it together. So open up your zipper and put sames together. So the fabric pieces go together, and then back here is the PUL goes together. So number one, before you change out your zipper foot, I recommend doing your zipper area first. I like to go in here and match up my, let me show you what I'm doing. Match up these two top sides. Can you see that in the camera? These two top edges, match those up first. That's most important because that's what's going to show when you sew it. So I just showed you what I'm doing, but you won't see what I'm doing while I'm doing it because of the camera angle, but now you know what I'm doing. And then just pin it or clip it. And come to the other side, line up the top edge of the fabric with each other. And pin it. All right, so before I pin anything else, I am going to go ahead and stitch these very carefully. And I like to do extra stitches because there's a lot of pressure. That's a pressure point of this bag. So I like to go ahead and get it on there really well. Okay, so let's change out our foot to the regular foot. You don't have to do this if you don't want to. So now you're going to pin it all together. It should already be basically lined up because we lined it up top. So basically all this is going to be good anyway. So we're going to go add a couple pins there. PUL is a little tricky, and my pieces were cut wonky. I went ahead and used some scrap pieces, so oops, I'm going to use this. I like to put less holes in this PUL. So from this part forward, make sure you have all your wrinkles out, even if your bottoms for some reason don't match. Mine don't match because, like I said, I used a scrap piece of PUL. So I'm okay with it. I know where my length difference is coming from. So anyway, you want to make sure you have all your wrinkles out. Okay, this is where we're going to leave it open. So we're going to start stitching down here. And when it comes to the PUL, I like to do a 1/2 inch seam allowance, 3/8 to a 1/2 inch, because it's going to go inside the other layer. And I do the other layer at 1/4 inch. Okay, and our tag is over here, so I'll check that out later. Now I'm doing a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Make sure my label is how I want it. Okay. So now we're going to go trim up the corners and turn the bag right side out. And we're just going to trim up the corners. And you'll also want to maybe just go ahead and make sure all your seams got included in your stitches. Sometimes when you first start, it's easy to miss a layer because there's a lot of layers you're putting together with this kind of a bag. So here we go. Let's turn it right side out. And this is why you want to leave your zipper open too before you do this. And poke your corners out through your hole of the lining. Okay, that's good. Then you come up here and push your zipper ends. And then you flatten out the lining piece inside. Poke those corners out, so it looks great. There we go. So I like using the zipper tape and cutting my zipper shorter than the bag. And then it leaves that little bit of spacing in there like that, and I really like that. So then you're going to want to take it, pull the lining out, and stitch shut the bottom where you turned the bag through. So that is how to make the wet bag. Now we'll put together the changing pad that goes inside. So we're going to do the changing pad for this bag because I already have the piece cut. I do have to cut the flannel and I have to cut the PUL for this. So let's go get that done and then I'll be right back. Okay, so now I have, let me see where my camera is looking. Okay, I have the flannel, the PUL, and the cotton cut for the pad. So I only radius off the cotton piece. I use that as my template. And I put the flannel down first. Then I take the PUL and I put that right side up on top of the flannel. So I have the slippery side up. And this flannel has some big creases in it. So try to get your creases out, make sure everything is nice and smooth. And then you take your fabric and you put it right side down on top of the PUL, which is right side up. So it's right sides together, okay? It slides really nicely on there. Okay, there's our piece. Take some clips and clip it. Now, if you have tags, you're gonna wanna put your tag on here as well. I make my entrance to turn over on one of the short ends. So I do that right here. Make sure you have all your layers and pin. Now, if this is your first time doing this, you might want an extra pin. That's okay. You can't really have too many pins. So I'm gonna take my label and I'm gonna put it between the fabric. I don't know if you can see me on the camera. I'm gonna put it between the fabric and the PUL, right about here. And then I will just add another pin, clip. I will adjust that when I get there. So I'm gonna start sewing here and I'm gonna sew around the whole thing. I'm not gonna bring you with me to the sewing machine because that's pretty self-explanatory. All right, so I stitched the perimeter. Now I'm going to clean up the edges, especially the corners. Don't cut into your stitches, but trim it down to like 1/8 of an inch on the corners, so it'll clean up nicely when you poke the corners out. Okay, one more. Okay, so now it's all put together. We're going to turn it right side out, and right side out is between the fabric and the PUL. There are 3 layers here, so don't pull it apart in the wrong area. So if you do, put it back in and pull it back out the right way. So just take your time and pop out the corners. They should be nice and clean. We're going to take it back to the sewing machine and do a top stitch. Before that, I like to either press it or at least roll it out and pin so that when you top stitch, it's not rolled in right here, right? Hopefully you can see. And the reason I like to use a flannel instead of batting is if you're not going to quilt this, batting is made to be quilted to hold it together. And this is washable, you know, so you really want to make it as durable as you can so it's more washable, user-friendly, washer-friendly, I guess. And you definitely don't want to quilt this because then you're kind of defeating the purpose of having the waterproof layer on there. So I'm just pinning enough to keep it like I want it. So when I top stitch, it will look great. Oops, I didn't poke this corner out apparently. And if I did, it went back in. Hence the reason that I am clipping it to keep it kind of like I want it. I think I will add one to the corners just to keep them from rolling back in. When you top stitch around the corners, just take your time. Try to keep your seam allowance the same if possible. It's not highly critical. It'll still work great. So this is my opening right here. So I want to make sure that is definitely pinned shut so all my layers get stitched in. Okay, so I'm gonna take this back to the machine and I'm just gonna do a top stitch around the whole perimeter. All right, there it is. It is all top stitched. Perfect. So this is basically how I also put it in the bag. I mean, it literally folds itself. Okay, let's get our bag. Alright guys, here is the finished product. It's a wet bag with a changing pad inside. These are just 3 different fabric samples I put together, and these would sell great on Etsy. They would sell great in a farmer's market or on Facebook Marketplace. So if you're looking for some projects to sew and sell, make sure you follow along. This is my new little series of projects to sew and sell. So this is number 1. Not my simplest project, but it's definitely not hard. Okay, so it's a wet bag with a changing pad and a zipper. I'm gonna sneeze. Or not. Fuzzy monkey. Fuzzy monkey. Fuzzy monkey. Okay. So next week, actually I don't know which one I'm gonna do next. I have a zipper tutorial, zipper bags, and fabric baskets. Well, this is kind of a fabric basket right here, but that's a plain one. So we're gonna do some fabric baskets in a tutorial, and I actually want to do a big hamper. You know, like the big ones you can buy from IKEA. That is also on my list of things to make. Those will definitely sell, and some tote bags. Tons of things coming up. I just don't even know which one to choose. So come back for more.